Everyone. I am Bernard Ori.
What's up, profitable stylists? Now that we know who Bernard Ori is, we can get our live going this week, and we are going to be talking about the importance of coaching. Oh, there she is. Oh, there she goes. All right.
Oh,
The blonde took a spill.
yes, you did.
You ever watch those modeling videos, those top modeling videos where they're going down the runway and they just wipe out hard because they're in those monster platform heels, you know?
Never have. I've never seen that.
Oh, I got to send you a couple of videos. I was just showing my brother-in-law one of these the other night. They had these models walking down the runway on a treadmill, and it made no sense whatsoever. Or like, those like airport moving
Oh,
sidewalks
yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
whatever. I don't get it. I don't know. But somebody coached the mess out of them because not one of them fell. I was expecting at least three, four of them. Well, what a segue. I was expecting like three, four of them to crash.
You didn't notice you said the word coach? We're going to talk about coaching and
We're going to talk
mentoring.
about coaching. Yeah, right. So,
Should
yeah.
you have one? Should you have a coach? Yes, you should have a coach.
You
I
are
think-
my coach, so I hope I should have one.
Well, thank you. Thank you. So I can kind of relate. You ever find yourself, none of us are there, and none of us are at the beginning anymore. Like, none of us are at the very beginning. Some of us are really close, and none of us have arrived yet until we die, and then that's the best we could have arrived to because it's over, right? So I always think of this line, like the beginning and the end of whatever. I mean, age, growth, all the different things in life. And so for me, let's talk about like growing in business. You start somewhere, you're going to end somewhere. And how fast you're going along that path is kind of up to you. But I think most of us just look forward. We're just trying and trying and trying and thinking maybe we're not going to get much further because it's hard to see the future. But you see people more successful than you, and you think, how can I get there?
How
What
can
can
I
I
get
do?
there?
What can I do different? And then a lot of times I find that we criticize other people, especially people below us. I know you don't, you're Mr. Positive, but sometimes we're looking at other people like, God, if they would just put down those cigarettes, or if they would just show up to work on time, or if they would just, it's hard to do that to yourself, you know? And so sometimes I want somebody else to tell me, what are the stupid things I'm doing? Because I feel like I work my butt off. I obviously I could work harder. I could probably come in earlier, stay later, and work harder. But where can I work smarter? And I know some multi-millionaire is looking at me saying that I met. Like I met the owner of John Renault this weekend, and he's from South Africa. He's built John Renault, and I took a walk through the warehouse. Oh my God. Some of the brackets for the shelving are actually orange. So my son walked back there with me. Well, he asked me about the warehouse, and I said, it looks like a Home Depot. That's how large it is. That's how much stuff and inventory they have. And
That is cool.
he said, Home Depot? And I said, come take a peek through the door. We walked through the door, and he goes, goals.
Goals. Yeah.
Goals. And then like I don't know, 8 or 10 feet above our heads was this rack that people walk on, and then it was like a second floor that you could see through the grating that they walk on.
Oh, that's cool.
It was like so many, I don't know, look like miles of shelving of wigs and hair systems and stuff. And we went to his house, the owner's house, for dinner one night. John and Stella Reynolds own John Renault, and I mean, I'm thinking he's got to be having this conversation with me, and he's asking me stuff about my life and where I'm at, and he's congratulating me, and I'm thinking, no, be real with me. Tell me the stupid things I'm doing. I know he's judging me on the inside. I know he's thinking like, God, if you would just do this, this, and this, you could be so much more successful. But he's so nice, he's not going to criticize me till I'm gone and he's talking with his wife, you know? I had my son with me, my 25, 26-year-old son, and that's right, I don't know his exact age. I don't know any of my kids' ages. There's so many of them. But I could look at him and say all the things that he could do a little better to be more, I say more like me, more like anybody more successful than him kind of quickly. But what are those things in my life? And that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. Could you pick yours out, Eddie, if you had to? Like what things you could do better or different?
Oh, absolutely, I could.
I can't. I can't see them. I feel like I'm perfect.
You feel
Just kidding.
that is
I'm
such a
telling you,
you answer. That is such a you answer to the T.
I'm pretty much there. No, I really don't see them clearly. I see a few little things, but I think there's big things. Maybe they're not. Maybe it is just the little things that say absolutely. But the point is, we all listen. RJ's going to put in the description below a link to a TED talk that really opened up my eyes. This I don't know if he was just a surgeon or a plastic surgeon, but he was a doctor, and he's doing a TED talk, and he says, do you need a mentor? Do you need a coach? He said, you know what? I didn't think I did.
Mm.
I had reached the top of my game. I'm the best surgeon in the world. I'm thinking, ooh, maybe you don't need a coach. He said, and so I'm thinking, I don't think I need a coach. I'm good. I'm great. How much better can I get? And I'm like, yeah, I hear you, man. I can relate. I'm pretty good at what I do. But then he says just I don't even know why. You got to watch the video because he says just because I thought it was the right thing to do, somebody said they could help me, coach me, mentor me, whatever. He said so. I said sure. Why don't you come and watch me do a surgery and see if there's anything you can see that I could do better? And this was the cool thing about it. This guy is not a better surgeon than him, but he sits up in that, you've seen in the movies where they sit behind a glass window and watch overhead, kind of from a second story perspective, bird's eye view, watching the surgery. And one of the important things that came up was something about the lighting. I think he said one of the lights went out during surgery. And the guy who's doing surgery said, I never noticed it. He said, so yeah, right there. Obviously, if the lighting was better. So it's not that this other guy could tell him how to do better surgery, but he could tell him how to have better success in what he's already great at by just looking at the whole picture. And there was a lot of, this guy took notes. There was a lot of little things, but one was lighting. And I thought, well, lighting's pretty important when you're in this dark little hole cavity of the body, surge doing hard or whatever, something inside this part of your body. You need to be able to see really good. And there were a few other big significant things that came up that he was like, I didn't even know these things were going on because he's focused right here. He doesn't even know what his helper doctors and nurses and around him are doing. Maybe some of them aren't performing to the best of their ability, which would help him do better. So that was a powerful thing to me. You've got some other analogies also, right?
So a lot of my analogies actually come from Darren, which is it's really insightful in a way of this. He's always said to me, because
Who's
I always
Darren? Tell everybody who Darren is.
Oh, okay. So Darren is the owner of Hair's the Bling, which is the distributor in here in Chicagoland area. So he
HTB.
has a HTB Beauty. So HTB Beauty is the local distributor in the Chicagoland area, but we also service the entire Midwest. So we have 7 surrounding states in total, or 7 states in total, Illinois plus the surrounding states.
Okay. 8 total, I believe, right?
Or 8 total. Yeah, I can, just like you can count, I can count too. Right. This is why we still need coaches. But so it's what is interesting is I always tell him, I have a class to teach on Monday. And every Monday I have a class to teach. But around today, like around Thursday and Friday, I tell him, all right, I'm going to go home and I'm going to start practicing to make sure I'm ready to go for Monday. Now, I'm the one that wrote the program for Monday. I'm the one who's teaching the class for Monday. And yet I'm practicing my own thing that I developed for Monday, right? And one time I told him, I said, I don't know why I'm stressing out so hard. And he goes, you know what? You're not stressing out so hard. You're doing your due diligence. He says, the athletes, they practice 40 hours a week to play a 2-hour game on Sunday. He said, at the time, he said, Tiger Woods is the #1 golfer of the world. He goes, even Tiger Wood got a coach. or Michael Jordan, the best basketball of all time. Even he had a coach, like all these great peoples had mentors, coaches, and instructors. He goes, and if you don't do that, then you can't get good. And if you can't get good, you can't help anybody else. And if you're in a position to be a mentor or a coach yourself or a teacher, an instructor or whatever, you need to take that responsibility very seriously. And I've realized that he does this to me every time too. So if I ever have a bad class, I obviously can tell what went wrong because it was a bad class. But then I come back from a program or from a class or from a show or from something, and he says to me, he always does this. He goes, let's debrief. How did the show go? Or how did the class go? Or how did the event go? And I said, man, this was an awesome event. This was an awesome class, awesome show. He goes, good. What did you learn? What new thing did you learn? I'm like, no. All these people, I was able to show all these. He goes, no. That's fine. But what new thing did you learn out of this? And I'm like,
you do better next time.
Yeah, I never thought about it. Never thought about it that way.
And you got to be careful because it can be a negative feeling. It's like, oh, I just want to celebrate the win right now. Oh, great job. Look how many new customers I got. Could you just pat me on the back instead? But that's the thing about a coach, a leader, a boss. I mean, this weekend when we taught the class at John Renault, it was the first big class. It was the first significant class since COVID. California's a little more shut down than a lot of other states. And so I went there and we had 5. They were great. It was fun. It was a good start, but the classroom will fit 18. So of course the president, Jeremy, comes in and says, so Bernard, and the education director, Emily, she's like, Bernard, how many could we fit in this room? I was like, physically fit? Hundreds. I know what the real question is. And she loved the smaller one-on-one. He's thinking, he's big picture for the business. What's the most we can do and how often can we do it? And I said, I see there are plugs on the floors. You got tables that hold 2. What's the actual max that you were set up for? So we start counting and it's 18. I said, we can do 18. He goes, you heard that, Emily? 18's the number. And she's like, I said, not by myself.
Yeah, right.
Pull in a couple of helpers and assistants. I can give the words to 18, but then I can't monitor 18 people. And I've taught 18 people before. So as the boss, he's always going to be pushing the edge. Like Darren, for you, is always going to be like, how can we do it a little bit better? And the only way you can know if you can do it a little bit better is to evaluate. It comes down to our weekly meetings in our salon. Each hairdresser, like, what did you do? And what are a couple of little things that you learned from the week? What could you do a little bit different? Where were the screw ups? Or I hear about the screw ups during the week and I bring them up in the meeting on purpose. And I'm sure I'm Mr. Negative, but really I'm Mr. Let's make sure we're learning from this and not mistake. And what sucks is one person messes up on a color. She gets to feel like, I screwed up. He's telling everybody. No, I don't want anybody else, including you, to make this mistake again. So we're going to use your learning experience or screw up, however you want to look at it.
Yeah, right.
And teach everybody right now, like, you didn't know that color doesn't lift color? You can't put that lighter color over a color. But she said she didn't have color on her hair. Right? So now we all know clients lie.
Clients lie.
You got to be a detective. You got to be able to figure it out yourself. You'll see some regrowth. You got to use a few clues and don't necessarily believe all the words you hear. That's experience. So yeah, I mean, mentor, accountability partner, there's so many benefits to it. So one of my favorite stories about sports, and I am not a sports guy, and I might have some of the details wrong, but this is my understanding of, and I think he was a high school or college basketball coach. And RJ is probably going to be typing in there right now because he knows the answer. But he had this winning team for so many years in a row. And whichever it is, you're losing people every year, right? So when a coach in high school or college, when they're winning like 10 years in a row, it's the coach and not the it, I mean, of course the recruiting could help a lot, but you're losing your good players to college or to pro ball. So whatever sport it's in, so you're always having to train and coach the new people. So when you keep on winning, that's a big testament to the coach. They're doing a good job getting this team to play together and play well. And this one was basketball, I remember hearing. And this is kind of where I came up with. Remember when Darren said we need to come up with uh, like what are the basics of growing a hair extension business for a hairdresser? And this is where I thought about going back to the beginning. And we couldn't call it back to basics because it was a wetline product that had just recently failed at the time, and we didn't want to be
Oh, that was Graham Webb. Yeah.
yeah, we didn't want to be associated with them, so we ended up calling it the 9 or 10 laws of growing extensions. And this is where it started. This basketball coach, he was asked, like, how do you have a winning team for this many years in a row? Did you get an answer? Is it college or high school?
John Wooden, UCLA, which I believe is college.
How much we know about sports.
I'm pretty sure UCLA is a college.
I think that's a college basketball team. But I think everybody can relate to this. When he was asked how he had such a winning team over so many years, he said, well, it starts with teaching the players how to tie their shoes. What? What?
Okay.
Talk about going back to basics. He said, I teach them how to tie their shoes and we learn how to dribble a ball correctly. And I'm thinking, you don't think by college or even by high school, if they're trying out for the team, I think college, yeah, that sounds like a college team to me. They should know how to do those two things. But I imagine some have a little natural talent or they tried real hard. They get there. And if you got 2 or 3 out of however many are on a team that are just not quite tying their shoes correctly, maybe it's important to have your shoes right in basketball because they're, going left and right pretty fast. And there's a lot of moving around on your feet in your shoes. And so I wouldn't have thought that having your shoes tied correctly. And when I heard that, when I thought about the extensions, I was like, you know what? I think the most important thing about growing a hair extension business is just I went back and thought the first few classes I taught, what was the thing that people did immediately? What did I do when I learned how to do hair extensions? The very first thing I did was I got a certificate and I showed people. Now, there was no social media or much of an internet when I first did it. So for me, it was like frame it or not and put it on the wall like a doctor or an attorney, look, this is my accomplishment. And then people asked about it. So we made that the first law of growing or marketing or planning your future. So that was like going back to basics. And that all came from that coach. Now, some of the other things were really basic too. You put hair on somebody right away, yourself, the receptionist. So to me, it was like going back to basics or the laws or just the simple things that all came from a coach of a college basketball team.
So real quick, you got a comment that said that was an amazing weekend of learning last week, and you're a good educator, Bernard. So
Who said that?
Lando?
You have a name? Lando or Londo. I think
Londo?
you say it Londo. I think I might have been pronouncing his name wrong.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad he's watching right now. Let me give a little shout out to him. He's in the Dallas, Texas area. If he could put the name of his salon in there, I'd like to give it a shout out too, because this is pretty incredible. I don't think this ever happened before in a class. He was with his boss and his boss and his wife. They were I think they were just around town while he was taking the class. And what happened was me and one of the other educators, actually, and my son, he came and educated, and Emily. So we're all three kind of standing around talking about how the class went, how good everybody was, a few little challenges we had, how we change things in the future, kind of like you were saying Darren does. And then my son looks down at Lando's hair, mannequin, and he said, Dad, look at this haircut. I said, yeah. And, we don't try to match color in the class because we want to see the difference in the two. He said, this is amazing because the mannequin's head sticks straight out on the side.
Yeah,
it's
right.
hard to. And he said, this is amazing. I said, what do you mean? And he goes, look, it blends so perfectly. So we pick it up. We're all looking at it. And I was like, God, we didn't get to give him a compliment in the class. he did a pretty good job in the class, but his haircut was was better than all the others. Some left him, some took him with them. You're flying. You don't want to put that mannequin head in your brief. I mean, in your school bag, your suitcase. Maybe the office agreed to mail it to him because they're going to mail some of his supplies to him. But we were looking at that head and like, wow, he did a good job in the class. He's so quiet. He didn't talk much, but he was doing everything really well when we come by and see it. I don't know. It's something to be said about just a good, humble, talented person. His boss said that he said, man, he can have some complaining clients and they would never know if he was frustrated. He just says, yes, ma'am, I can do it. And he can do almost anything, and he puts up with anything. He puts up with things most hairdressers would just never do that again. But he has such patience and talent. He said that when you go into his little private room that he's given him to work with stuff, he said it looks like a science lab. He said, I look in there, and I've been in the hair business a long time, and I don't even know what's going on in there. He's practicing. He's practicing and experimenting with new things. And when I saw him getting into hair replacement, he said, I told him, let's get you to a class. So it was cool. It was really fun to have him in the class. So good job. Good job, man. So
See, you just made me remind you. You reminded me of something. I taught a class for a larger salon a couple weeks ago, and so they all work together. They all know each other. Sometimes when you have a group, so when you have group classes, when they're individual stylists, everybody's from a different location, it makes a different environment, as you know. And then sometimes when you have a group salon, they're all together. You have like the alpha and you have like the one head, hen or whatever you call that, the head chick. So the one of the girls goofed. She made a mistake. The other stylist goes, see, I tell you every time, this is what you do, and they're like, they're giving it to each other really good. Now, she's feeling bad, kind of like what you was mentioning earlier. She's feeling bad that she made a mistake. And she's trying to, like there's no two ways around it. She's got to get it fixed. She can't fix it. I come over to help her to see like what's going on because I heard it and I do pay attention to what's going on in the room at all times.
Right.
I come over and I saw what the mistake was. I knew exactly why and how that mistake happened, but she was struggling with figuring it out. So rather than saying, oh, look, this is what you did, stand this way instead, I got excited about it. And I always get excited when somebody goofs in the class because that is the best opportunity to be able to help somebody truly learn something in that moment and to show off to everybody else that is how you become successful, is when you can figure out what you goofed, right?
Yeah.
So I break it down. I'm like, all right, walk it back with me. What happened here? She said, I don't know. And I'm like, no. Don't be embarrassed.
Right.
Yeah. You know exactly what you did, how you got this goofed. So what happened? What did you do? So she starts walking it back. She goes, I did this, and this. And I'm like, all right. And then you start breaking it down. At this step, what are you supposed to do? Well, no, this is what I did. I'm like, no, not this is what you did. What were you supposed to do? What were you supposed to have done?
Or what would you do next time?
Or what would you do next time? Right. Obviously you did this and it didn't work. Now what are you going to do moving forward? But then while you were talking about and then she discovered on her own, like I guided her to what the answer should be, but she was able to discover it on her own. And she felt so proud that she figured it out, even though I kind of pushed her to the answer, right? But then I was thinking about like what you say, when I translate the tying the shoes, like the most basic thing in the world, I've heard you do this before, and I've realized that I do this every time. When I teach a color class, I always pull out the color wheel. Red, yellow, blue is the primary colors. Can we all agree? Can we all agree these are the secondaries?
Right.
And I've heard you say this too. Like, all right, we're going to do a haircut. Let's all agree this is how you do a zero elevation bob. Like I've seen you do it multiple times. The most basic Establishing a weight line, cutting a straight line. You just say like, yeah, right.
Straight. That's straight. Not level, but straight.
So, and then with blow drying classes, with all the classes that we all teach, we all do that. We all say like, we're going to establish this is the ground. Now, based off of that, this is what we're getting into, right?
Baseline.
The baseline. And it is really important to revisit the most basic of things, because the number one bad habit that's created is within a month of somebody getting freshly trained on something. They start, if you don't do, like if you go to take a class and you learn something, and if you don't do it, what is it, within the first 48 hours?
Oh man, the sooner the better is the point. Right.
Right. You
Right.
start losing, and you start making up, you fill in the gaps with some crazy weird thing that nobody told you to do.
So you know what, Ali, the hair ninja, he's in the Dallas area. Hey, listen, if Londo puts the name of his salon, I'd like to tell everybody the name of that salon if he posts it in there. But Ali, the hair ninja, is in that same area, and he makes it a practice to do something that I always try to do, but I didn't make it a rule in my salon. When one of his stylists goes off and gets education, Ali is his name. Some people call him the hair ninja. Nikessa Moeller works for him also, and you've met her at some
Oh
events
yeah.
that we've done. So her boss, when somebody goes out and gets education, like Nikessa came and learned something from me one time, it's a rule that the next training session they have, which I think is weekly at a salon, that person that went out and learned comes back and teaches it to the salon. So while it's fresh in your head, try the best you can to teach what you learn. It's great for the whole salon. It's even better for the person who learned it, because when you teach it, you remember it so much better, and it forces you to put it into practice immediately. So right away, you kind of have to do it to teach it usually, whatever it is in hair. So like you said, I doubt that they're going to wait a week to do it for the first time in front of everybody. They're going to be more like you. I need to prepare for it. So now this forces some preparation, some practice. Let me make sure I've got it. Like, let's say you go to an updo class. Okay, next Tuesday, you're teaching it in the morning meeting. Well, I just wait till Tuesday morning and see if I can do what I learned in class. During the weekend, I'm going to be bringing a mannequin home or grabbing some girlfriend's hair and or wife and trying to do that updo. I don't do updos. So I would definitely, that's why I picked it, because it makes me nervous. If I were to learn an updo in a class, I'd be going home trying to replicate that exact same thing more than once before the class. Now I'm probably going to do it on clients and feel comfortable paying for it. So yeah, you're right. The sooner you put into practice what you learned, the better. Like that class I just taught this weekend. If these guys go home and try it right away. So that brings me to another point that I learned from Jude Grayson, the karate school friend of mine, karate instructor. He made me realize something. I used to go for quality in my education. Not that I don't do quality, but I'm starting to see how in some cases quantity is more important. When he teaches certain movements in karate, he actually has a complete seminar that's called Rep Your Face Off. Rep your face off. Do so many reps in whatever the thing is you want to get better at that your face falls off. And so it's like a skeleton that I don't even know what to call it, logo for that particular program, which makes sense. No face, because they rep their face off. And so I started realizing when I teach, it's more important. So what we did for this hair replacement class is in the past, we used to just put a system on once and sometimes a second time with a different technique. But we practically did the same technique 2 days in a row. And I found it fascinating. The first day, we taught everybody how to put their markings, where to put the hair down. On the second day, I said, okay, we're going to do it again. You took it off yesterday at the end of the day, cleaned it all up. You have a second hair system. So now try to remember everything we learned yesterday. You took some notes. I'll send some helpers around the room. Now, the neat thing about this was me and the lead educator were doing a live on Facebook, or I don't even know what social media. I just know I was talking to the camera like this. And they had their social media department putting us up. And so those first 10 or 15 minutes, we're doing a live while our instructors are learning how to be lead instructors, so it was good for them. But everybody should have kind of known what they were doing anyway. And it was crazy how many mistakes, learning experiences we had. They were like, but this is what you said yesterday. I'm like, well, then why is she doing it different than you? she, she's doing what we taught yesterday and doing what we did yesterday. You are not. I mean, I didn't say it like that, but that's what I'm thinking. You said it. Like, I don't think so. There's video proof. So many times I know the steps so well. Little steps, and I know they're not going to get them, but it was just really neat for some of them to say, oh, you're right. You're right. I remember we did do that. So it was really cool to see them do it a second time. And I think that repetition is what got them. If they go home and do it one more time, I think they'll have it. So I know we got more on to teaching and education, but it still comes from a mentor, a coach, a trainer, a teacher.
Well, that's the whole thing. That's the whole thing, because here's another version of coaching too. So somebody once asked me, they said, who teaches? She says, you're a great teacher. Who teaches you? Who's your teacher? And I couldn't say Bernard Ori because she had no idea who the hell I was talking about. No, no, I told her, I says, actually, I coach myself through a network of people that I've developed. And she goes, what does that mean? I said, well, I said,
Can you
because,
define each word, please?
yeah, right.
Network.
Please define what that means. And it's true. I bounce ideas off of you all the time. I bounce ideas off of John all the time. You know, there's a couple of other people that I talk to on a daily or at least every other day, but I speak to them consistently multiple times a week, and I'm constantly bouncing ideas. Now, majority of them are other hairstylists because we're all in the industry and we understand the way we talk. But there are a couple of other people that I speak to that are not in the beauty industry. They're in completely different fields, but I'll bounce ideas off of them too, just to see what their perspective is on what I am saying, and if what I am saying makes sense or not. And so if I give them a presentation and if they can at least grasp half of what I'm saying, at least the idea of what I'm saying, maybe not the technicality of what I'm saying, because again, they're not in the industry, but if they can at least understand the message of what I'm putting out there, then my presentation is solid. I just have to tweak the technicality of it, you know?
And you know what I thought you were going to say? And I know it's true, but you didn't say it. When she says, and who coaches you or teaches or trains you, I would have said you to them, whoever I'm teaching, because you know it's true in classes. That's the beauty of teaching. I have become a better stylist all around because I've been all over the country teaching so many different people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sure, there's a lot of screw ups and mistakes, but oh my goodness, almost every class, somebody does something that I'm a little jealous of. And I'm like, that mistake is a great idea. You know what? Might be something I did not ask them to do, but they interpreted it different or perceived it differently, and they do it. And then I'm like, hey, that's a change we might need to add to the program. And those have happened when I taught extensions for the 7 or 8 years before I started teaching hair replacement. Now I've only been teaching hair replacement a few years, but in those few years, I've been to many states in the country, and it's really neat to see that some people have just intuitively understand things differently. You know, it's like my 9-year-old. He gets word math problems. I mean, you can read out this thing and then he just understands how to figure out the answer. My wife is saying, Bernard, I had to write down things to figure out the answer, and he just did it in his head. And so it's like, yeah, I don't see math like that. Some people see hair like that. I don't see hair like that either. I've got to make a whole bunch of mistakes and practice to get good at it, and I put in the time and I'm good at it. Now, what I'm trying to tell you is if you want to get better, you kind of are coaching yourself. Like you said, you have to subject yourself to, you know what this kind of brings me to thinking about? I said it this weekend. The money is made in the boring. I hate to say it that way, but often, I know you got to have fun. You want to have fun. But when you get good at something, the way to make money at it is to do it again and again and again and again, because that's the thing you do the fastest, the easiest, and can charge the most for. So, not that you don't want to keep learning other things in your free time, but you've got to kind of segregate or separate those times. And the majority of the time, let's see, from here all the way to here, that has to be the stuff that you're already good at, you already know, and then in that little bit of time, be putting the education in, trying the new things, trying the different things that you might introduce over here. Maybe some of those things are to make more money or be more successful. So you need to impress upon yourself a schedule, especially as a hairdresser. A lot of us have a lot of freedom. So you have to tell yourself, these are the hours I'm going to work, 9 to 5. Even if nobody's there, I'm going to be there. Even if it's only 3 or 4 days a week, it doesn't have to be a ridiculous, mad schedule. But if you agree to be at work, I'm going to go with something light. You should do more. But if you do 9 to 5, 4 days a week, and you're going to be, then be there. Maybe you don't have customers 2 or 3 hours of the day. That's you coaching yourself. This is what or you could say I coached you to do this. And that will push you into success, because all you're saying is from 9 to 5, you're going to work on your business or in your business, whichever. And if a client doesn't show up, or you didn't have anybody for 2 or 3 hours, do something. Have a science room like Londo does, where he's practicing new things to move forward, or you're calling your clients or texting them, or social media or marketing, or posting some pictures. But instead of spending the money you haven't made yet, or sleeping in and sleeping half the day away, use that time to grow your business. You decide the time you need to grow your business. Ooh, I think
I'm going to say this. Obviously, coming to an education, coming to a class is the best form of coaching that you can get.
Yeah, that's where it starts.
That's where it starts. In between those programs, because those aren't available every single day. What is available every single day, though, is yourself. So if you dedicate an hour a day, or whatever the time is, you got to dedicate a portion of time every single day to read. Like, I always look at the most successful people in the world. How did these people become the top most rich people in the world, the top most successful people in the world, right? So the number one things, like among the top things that they say, is that they read constantly. They absorb all media. And then the next thing they say is practice, practice, practice. And I guess that famous quote, how you get to Carnegie Hall, practice, practice, practice. So whatever it is that you're at now, even if, and I say this a lot for during the appointment times, you have a client sitting in your chair, talk out the service to your client. Take 5 or 10 minutes of the service time and stop gossiping, and just actually explain to your client what you're doing to them, on them, for what reason. It will actually make a huge difference in the way you present yourself to the client, to how you present yourself to the next client, and how the client views you moving forward as well too. And then get yourself a network, get yourself a buddy system. I know there's a lot of studio owners nowadays, comparing to 5-10 years ago.
Instead of a network,
yeah,
let's talk about
get your neighbor.
Let's talk about a place that's really easy to start. This is where I started years ago. An accountability partner, one person. They don't even have to be better than you at what you do, because like you said, you already know a lot of things you should do. So what I started with was a meeting. We had 4 guys that met. Oh, it was way too early. I think it was one day a week. We met at 7 a.m. in the back of the salon before we were open. Maybe it was 8 o'clock. I don't know. But it was an hour before the salon opened, or some hour in the morning that everybody could do. And just agree to meet once a week for 30 minutes or an hour with a friend or 2 or 3. And one of the very first things we did at that time, it was, I think we had 3 or 4 F's. It was like faith, family, and finances. So in each one of those categories, we're like, what is one thing that we said we would do last week? Did we do it? And we'd have to go around and be like, no, I didn't. One was, I said I would paint the front door for my wife. And so everybody writes it down. Bernard said he'd paint the front door. As the family, and to move forward in finances, I thought, you know what? I really need to mail those postcards out. I need I need to start with between now and next week. I need to get the mailing list for this category. All right. So I don't have to, I should write it down. I didn't necessarily have to write it down because everybody else was writing it down because they're going to call me out on it in a week. Did you do your 1, 2, and 3 things for each category? And then we go around the room. Did you do the things you said you'd do last week? What are you going to do moving forward? Sometimes it was the same thing again because I didn't do it and I'm really embarrassed, but it's crazy how telling anybody else out loud that you didn't do it, you feel, if you have any self-worth, you feel bad that you didn't do it, you know? This is 3 weeks in a row. I didn't do what I said I'd do.
Yeah, right.
That
You
would never,
lazy son of a.
sometimes one guy said, I'm going to clean my desk. And I was like, that's all? And then I always am pushing for more. And he goes, I really think that's all I can get done this week.
Oh,
and one of the other guys said, that's fine. Don't overcommit. Because that was the power of the group too. Sometimes it's like, I'm going to paint the whole house. I'm going to pressure wash the house, paint the house, and put in a new flower bed for the family stuff. And you're like, no, you're not going to do all that in a week. Don't you have a job? Are you off? Are you taking vacation? So it was also important for the mentors or your friends to say, hey, that's too much to agree to. Do you have to get them done for some reason? Just commit to what you know you can actually get done in a week. There'll be another week for the next part of it, but be realistic. What are you going to do over the next week? And, you know, we're kind of past that kind of thing now. I'm so freaking driven. I do way more than I could ever tell anybody I'd do. But that was a starting point for me. And it might be for a lot of people in this channel that are watching us. Have a friend that you tell, I'm going to do this over the next week. What are you going to do? Let's see next week if we get them done. It's a good starting point. I think it's a good ending point, really.
It's a good ending point as well, too. You know
right
what?
After these
use this video to put your comments, and you guys can hold each other accountable in the comment section.
Did Londo say the name of his salon?
He did not. He checked out.
He probably had to go to work. He had to do a customer. Well, maybe he'll see this video later and put it in the description below. But listen, he focuses and excels in hair extensions, and hair replacement is going to be a new thing for him. He was really good. So if you need either one of those in that Dallas area, he'd be a good one to schedule.
You were
with.
Impressed by him.
I was. He was very talented.
Singing him praises. Yeah. That's awesome. That is really awesome. All right, everybody. Check out the Online Academy. If you can't get into live education, find a friend, get in a mentor, coach, get coached, and we'll catch you next week.